All right. So it was the summer of 2012, August 2012, actually. And my buddy, who had been a long-term mentor for me, the guy who helped me in real estate, and really who I credit for getting me focused and helping me figure out the right things I needed to do to get my real estate business dialed in. He approached me and said, "Hey, man, podcasting is getting hot right now. And I know you have a lot of experience in podcasting. So why don't we get together and do a show?" I thought about it for about a second and I was like, yeah, of course, man. Let's do a show. Great idea. I'm game. And so we started recording in August of 2012, what would eventually be known as Marketing and Productivity Radio. And the way we did things back then is the way most people are still doing them today, I'm sure. And that was just, hey, we've got some ideas and we just want to record a show, put it out there and get listeners and become famous and make millions of dollars. So that's what we did. We started recording in August of 2012. Let me see, the first one aired, the first Marketing and Productivity Radio aired on September 15th of 2012. And there's a whole story there where we got mixed up with the name of the show and all that kind of stuff. But that shows you how unprepared we really were. And that show lasted 6 months. The last one aired around, 6 months later, the last one aired. We had about 22,460 downloads, and I was $3,750 in the hole. We made no money, and that podcast died. It died an ugly death because we were broke and podcasting, and there was no real purpose to it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about on today's call, is how not to be a broke podcaster. So welcome, PDC crew. I'm going to bring in Scott now that I've told a little story there. So let's bring Scott in.
What's up?
Hey, bro. I hate to make you hold so long, but I had to tell the little story and set it up.
I love it. I love it because it's a good story, and it's unfortunately it's a true story that a lot of us are facing. You know, we jump in without a plan. It's just we think the show is going to be the cash cow, and in a lot of cases that's not it. It's not the case at all.
And that's why we're here today, right? To discuss that with the PDC folks.
Yes.
So we want to do this like the way I want to do this, and everybody here, thank you, welcome. I didn't want to open with boring welcomes. I wanted to suck you in with the story first. But the PDC crew is here. Scott is their fearless leader. There's two fearless leaders, right?
There's two of us, yeah, myself and Anthony Hayes, yeah.
Anthony said he might drop by also, so if he wants to call in, great. But the way I want to do this is, you know your PDC people, you got that crew on lockdown, and so I want to make you the representative of the PDC crew and hit me with everything you've got, and I will do my best to dig deep down inside and find answers.
I love it. I love it because the one thing I know of you is that you hold no punches. You don't pull any stops, and you're going to rattle some cages. And I'm excited for that because I feel like people romanticize podcasting a little bit, you know, and that they don't get down to the dirty, just, I guess, the guts of it. The fact that if you want to make money, you've got to approach it a certain way, and you've got to bear certain things in mind. So I'm really excited because this is my first podcast. I launched it last April. We've been at it a year. And I have made more money from podcasting than I've put in.
Wow.
And I hear that that's not typically the case. But I had a mentor walk me through it all. I had a guy who already knew how to make money at this, show me some tips and tricks. And do I want to get better? Oh, yeah, definitely. But having started the PDC, having 533 members ask me on a regular basis, how do we monetize? I felt like I needed to bring in someone bigger and better than me to kind of discuss it and to answer some of our questions. So I guess my first question is, I'm going to just hit you with it. Jonathan, what are some ways to monetize?
Well, I did come prepared because I have a document, but I'm going to just give you a few highlights here from
Sure.
this doc that I've created. But the number one way that any of you can get started, and this is an overlooked way. People, when you mention this, they're like, that, why do you bother with that? That's no good. And so this is a great opportunity, and it works better in some niches than it does in others, but it's something that you should be doing and you could be doing, and it's transcripts. What?
Yeah.
Transcripts.
Yeah.
So I hear lots of podcasters talking about, I don't need transcripts. I don't get, who cares about transcripts? And they think that the only benefit is SEO. And the fact is that if you have a group of people that likes to read, like I'm a reader, bro. I just finished reading a book. Actually, check this out. This is how I put things into action. I just read this book before we got on the call, and it says how not to be boring, start with a story. And I put that right into action. Okay. And so I love to read. And if your people love to read too, then transcripts is a great option to give them your show in a different format where they don't have to sit for 20 or 30 minutes. They can just scan through, get what they need, and keep on moving. And so I didn't believe it at first either, but we've used transcripts not only to get opt-ins, but we've also used transcripts for sales. And I don't know if I should, Scott, should I give away how we do that? Or should I just hold that back?
You know what, man? I'm here to serve my people. So if you're willing to give a few things away, I say go for it. But I'll let you decide what stuff you want to pull out. But since this is the first one, I say we should at least give them this.
All right, let's do it. And so here's what we do. Wanted to make sure. So here's what we do. So people opt into our list to get the transcript, and what they get, whether they opt in today or they opt in 10 years from now, they're going to get the transcript for the most recent show. And what happens is they're like, okay, but maybe this wasn't the show they were listening to. Maybe they want the rest of the shows. And it opens up the question, well, how do I get the other transcripts? Cha-ching! Transcript library. Get your library card. Here, $20, get your library card and lifetime access to transcripts. Boom. One way to make money with your podcast using something that most podcasters just throw away or don't even think about.
I love it. I love it, man. Transcript library. See, I hadn't even thought of that myself, because the way that I thought of using transcripts was to put it into like an ebook format or even a printed book format and sell it.
That's too much work.
In a web shop. It feels like it, doesn't it?
That's too
but
much
I've
work.
seen guys. There are guys in the PDC who have actually pulled it off very well. Brian K. Wright is one of them. He turned his show into a book, and he's been selling that. And so I was thinking, man, that would be great. But a transcript library, that's beautiful.
Boom.
I dig that.
Yeah, it's so
I love
easy.
that.
So that's one easy way. Let's look in this document and see what else we have. So another thing to do, and this is very old school. This goes back, I studied direct response marketing. And if you guys don't know what that is, it's going to be a whole rabbit hole, just like your podcast was, that you could go down. But the good part about direct response marketing is when you learn it, when you use it, it makes you money. So go learn something about direct response marketing. Anyways, we go back to Robert Collier from the early 1900s. He talks about using coupons, and people are like, coupons, so what? But if I check my wife's she's got a little book over there with all the coupons. If she doesn't use those coupons, she feels like she's losing money. That's money she's already earned. And I'm like, what? You're spending money. And she's like, no, I'm saving money. And I don't get it. But this happens out there. And a lot of people will go for it. If you give them a coupon for half off your product, limited time, just a listener only special, that is one way to take your listener from just being a listener to being a customer, which is way more important. I mean, listeners are great. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to build a buyer's list. I don't know what you guys are trying to do, but coupons, whether you offer them an email or you offer them on the air, are a great way to get people to take action and take you up on your product offers.
Now, that's something I really like to point out here is you just made something really crystal clear. A lot of you guys in the PDC who are asking me on how to make money, one of the first things I ask you is, do you have a business? Is your podcast supporting a business, a service, a product? And it's the first thing I ask my clients too when they sign up is, do you have a business? Because if not, this might not be the best time to start a podcast. Because honestly, I feel that podcast is like a free source. You know, you put it out there for people, it's free. They can get at you. It's basically an automatic salesperson that you don't have to be there to establish, almost like it's a passive relationship establishment tool. Like you don't have to be there. Someone can listen in and feel like they already know you, so that when they approach you, they're like, "Hey, Scott, I caught your show. I love what you do." That's great. But if you can't say, "Oh, you do? Here's some things to look at if you want to work with me," or here are some things, that you can buy, be it a book, be it coaching services, or some kind of, service that you offer, your show is almost hitting a dead end there. And how important do you feel is it to have a business or product to offer?
I was writing about you to my email list because I write daily emails 7 days a week. And one of the things I said was, I normally don't talk about this. And that's why I opened with that story, was because that podcast failed because we were just doing a podcast and hoping a business would follow. And the fact is, that ain't going to work, Chuck. Sorry. But the idea here is, and I'm glad you brought it up, is you must have a working business if you expect a podcast to work for you, because you must have customers, you must have prospects, and you must have different ways to bring them into the funnel. And a podcast is just another way to deliver those people. I was talking to Dean Jackson. I don't know if you know Dean from the I Love Marketing show, but one of the things he said over coffee was, hey, podcasts suck at getting leads. Like they're not great at getting leads. And a lot of people think podcasts can get a bunch of leads. He said, what podcasts are really good for, what podcasts excel at above all else, is building that relationship and converting people from prospects into customers. Just like you said, they get to know you in this process and then they buy your stuff. And if you don't have stuff for them to buy, then you are wasting your time.
It's absolutely true. Like myself, like I said, right now I have a service. I coach people on how to launch their shows. And what that ends up being is people listen to my show and they say, how did you do that? That opens up the door right there for me to say, I can show you, but it costs money. Or people will listen to, I actually have affiliates too, which is another way that I market. I have approached people and said, listen, if people ask you how to start a podcast and you've worked with me and you enjoyed the process, feel free to refer them to me, which is another way that I've turned podcasting, the business of podcasting, into money. But the podcast itself, to be honest with you, without that whole business side of things, people think that they can just, ride the golden sponsor wave or, have some kind of, I've seen some people attacking Patreon and some people do very well with it. But I mean, what are your thoughts on sponsors and Patreon pages and stuff like that, Jonathan?
All right, so
asking a real entrepreneur about Patreon. Did you see that, Nebraska?
I mean, look, this idea of sponsorships is great in theory, but how many people out there do you know that are making a living off these sponsorships? Not many. Even my anchor shows, the shows that get the most downloads on my network, I was approached by a sponsor the other day. And the money that they were offering me to sponsor, not only sponsor, then they wanted my talent to read their ad on the air and pretend that he used their product. And I'm like, there's everything wrong with this. Everything. We don't use your product. We don't want your stupid little dollars, and we don't want to be involved in this. And so my thought on sponsors, just feel like I'm going to get in trouble for this.
Real talk, man.
My
Real
thought
talk.
on sponsors is just bullshit. Okay, that's what I think. And the number of downloads you need to make most of these sponsors happy, you're probably not going to get. And so really the way to make money, in my opinion, and the way that I've done it with all my shows is like you, through referrals and through converting people on my list. And the other way is direct sales of our own products. We create our own products for our listeners and we make those offers to them. Because I don't know if we're going to talk about this. I guess we can talk about it a little bit. So, all right, picking back up from the story where that podcast failed, all right? And I was down in the dumps. I lost over $3,750, and I was just like, man, this sucks. I never want to podcast again. And so a year later, a little bit less than a year, it was about 9 months later, my buddy who I did that show with, he approached me again and he's like, look, last podcast didn't go well, but podcasting's getting really hot right now, and we got to jump back into this. And I'm like, oh, shit, no, nothing you can say will make me want to podcast again. He's like, come on, man, you got the skills, we got the content, we can do this. And I thought about it. He is a good mentor of mine. He's a good friend of mine, and he wanted to do this. And I wanted to be able to do it too, because he helped me out so much in my business that I felt like I was doing the world a disservice by not delivering his thoughts and his ideas to the public. And so it was my duty really to make this happen. And I said, all right, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it differently this time. We were working a coaching program together. He and I were coaching a group of people. They were having some issues that we could solve. And so here's what I said. All right, we're going to do this, but here's how we're going to do it. We have these people who have a problem, and we're going to come up with a solution to solve that problem. If the people buy that solution, then we will use the money there to fund our show. And so this is where I came up with my podcast recipe, no money down podcast recipe. And so what we did was we sold the solution for their problem. People jumped on board, and we had enough money to fund the show. And that show was the Making Agents Rich show. The first one aired July 4th, 2013, and we were promising success and freedom to all our listeners. And that became the first show on the Podcast Factory Network. And that also became the first podcast that I ever did, which I made a living on because we were making sales, we had a business, and we had everything in place to do it properly from the beginning.
Beauty.
One more point that I want to make there. So when I compare what sponsors are willing to pay versus what we were making there, we were averaging the first year $1 per download. Sponsors won't even pay you like 10 cents or 25 cents a download. So that's why I don't care about sponsors.
Yeah, and that's one of the things and that's why I'm able to say that I have made more money off of podcasting than I've put in, is because what's the honest overhead to podcasting, Jonathan, really? It's not very high.
I mean, for me, like my fixed cost, because I have a team, so it's a little bit different for me, but fixed cost is around $3 to $4, right in between $3 to $4 per minute of audio.
Okay. See, for me, like I'm a huge fan of I'm a bit of a control freak, and I'll start outsourcing eventually. I know I will. But for me, I mean, my overhead, I'd probably say, is maybe only a couple $100 a month. And for some of the podcasters out there right now, it's even less. You know what I mean? Some guys are literally, they just got their host that they're paying for, and that's it. They do the rest themselves. And they're still going broke with only maybe $30-$40 a month going into this sucker. And I'm like, you know what? There's something wrong there, because I've been able to pull in clients on a consistent basis monthly. And so basically, let's say I'm paying for hosting, for the websites, for everything. Let's say I'm paying about $200 a month. I can easily pull in $1,000 plus $2,000 a month, no problem. And so, like, obviously when you've got a business that your podcast is steering people toward, it's a whole different ball game. You're not begging for money anymore.
Begging for money.
You're people. Well, that's what it feels like, honestly. When you're approaching sponsors, it feels like begging almost. You want people to come to you.
For sure.
You want to be sitting in the power position. You don't want to be approaching people going, "Hey, will you sponsor my show?" Because we did that. I'll be honest with you. Our first month out the gate, we had sponsors, and we got our first check was like $150. That was it. But we only had 180 listens. Okay,
so it covered your costs. That's pretty good.
Yeah, even that's better than $1 a listen.
Yeah,
and so, it's just under $1 a listen. And so we bought ourselves a couple of mics, and we got ourselves a secondhand mixer and kind of dumped back into it. But we noticed something is that we got a couple sponsors again after that. But after that first round of sponsors, people were getting a little bit stingier. Our numbers were going up, but people weren't as quick to part with their money, and we were kind of wondering why. And so we decided to jump into affiliate marketing instead. We took some people who we knew what they did, we knew what they liked, podcast editors, One gentleman in particular, he's a coach for coaches. And a lot of the people that we were getting on our show were coaches. So rather than sell his program to our listeners, we were selling it to our guests.
Smart. Very smart.
The guests would get on, they would re-listen back to their episode, and they'd hear the ad space in the beginning for, Mark's program, and then they'd go approach Mark.
Wow.
And they'd be these are the guests, these are the experts, the people we were getting on, smart. Right? And so we figured out that we could sell to our guests if we did it right. We could sell to our listeners if we did it right. But what we started realizing later on was that our guests and our listeners were actually great sources of referrals instead, and customers. And so rather than just try to sell to you, I want you to tell your friends about me instead, And I felt like that built a way bigger net to fish with.
For sure, man. That's a great idea. And that's actually one of my secret strategies I don't share too much. I feel like editing. I don't want to put this replay up. But
don't put the replay up. People have to pay for
that's what I feel like. But that's one of the things that I do now is I wasn't doing it actually when you interviewed me, but as I've evolved and I've been getting more involved in the things that I'm doing, I get interviews now, and I'm not really targeting the listener so much as I am targeting the host of the show to see if there's a strategic relationship. Look at us. I was interviewed by you, and now we're doing some projects together. And so that's really where I'm at right now, is targeting the host of the show when I'm interviewed, and the 5 minutes that I have to chat with them before or after, usually after, making that bond and building that relationship for future business is really where it's at. And I don't know if that helps with making money, but relationships equal money in my book.
They do. And if you don't mind, I'd like to cut a quick story, since we were talking about how you and I kind of developed. Jonathan, when I first, we got to talking, and I said I wanted to get him on my show, and I called him the first time, lost the interview, called him a second time, something went wrong there too. Ended up calling him a third time, and the guy actually said to me, I don't typically get on calls 3 times for one person. This is crazy. But he was so cool about it, right? You were very cool about it. And I think the first time was my fault. The second time was your fault. Yeah. And then the third time we were like, all right, let's just get this right. And so we got it, and the door opened all of a sudden. It wasn't just you anymore. You asked how you could help me. And I said, man, I'm looking for some real quality cats to offer to my audience. I'm tired of millennials kind of searching around in the dark for any kind of answer, and just getting someone who's a step up or even a step below them, or have never experienced entrepreneurship, or giving them advice. That's where I came from, right? People who have never been entrepreneurs telling me that it was crazy.
Yeah.
And so when you came along, that was one of those sparks that I went, oh man, this cat's done it. Not only has he done it, but he's done it 3 different times, 3 different ways. This is someone I got to talk to. But then you introduced me to Ben Settle, who also got on the show later, and the guy is an email genius. You introduced me to Dan Meredith, and he and I take the piss out of each other like crazy. And the thing is with Dan, his show has actually become my favorite show to tune into. And so, Death, Glory, or Disappointment is, and I'm kind of disappointed because I haven't seen any episodes in a little bit.
New season starts 1 week from today.
Good.
Season 2.
Good, because that's something that, it's the one show that I've been able to send to people, no matter what avenue of entrepreneurship they're following, because it's all just very organic, grassroots. This is how you don't be a crappy person and a crappy businessman. This is how you do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing, it's evergreen content, and it's amazing. But what ended up happening is you introduced me to these cats, and now these cats are the guys I'm going, how can I strategically form relationships with these people? And of course, like you said, that leads to money. So it's one of those things where, building relationships should be the biggest thing on your mind.
Yeah.
Always, always.
I've been fortunate, man. The whole podcast factory thing, I told you the story of how it started with Darren, who is my mentor. And then you met Ben Settle, who has been a total game changer for me. Everything I learned from Ben has changed my life. And so I've been fortunate that I have found mentors. I've always found mentors. In fact, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, what is it? Why am I so into this mentor thing? And I figured it out. I was being interviewed a couple weeks ago, and I figured out what it was. When I was a kid, my parents used to take me to Staten Island. We lived in Brooklyn. They took me across the bridge to Staten Island to visit my uncle and aunt. And my uncle was an electrician for the Triborough Bridge Authority. And so every time I would go over there, he would give me projects. Like he'd be like, "Oh, we're going to go fix this," or, "Oh, we're going to go do that here. Hold the screwdriver, do all that." And I'm just like, "Yeah, I'll do that." And so that's where I figured it out. See, when I was a kid, I loved that little bit of purpose. And so a few weeks back, I had my little sister here. And so I have a 9-year-old sister, which is kind of funny. She's young enough to be my daughter, this kid. But dad started over again after mom died. Good job, dad. But I had my little sister, right? And I had my little niece who is 7 years old. And they were hanging around the house. We were playing the piano and stuff like that. And they were getting bored. And we went out to the back porch. I got my beer cooler out there. I popped a beer and gave one to my dad. And we're looking at the waterfall and chatting. And the kids are just like bored. And I'm like, "You need something to do?" Yeah, yeah. All right. So I hand my sister the broom, and my little niece says, "Well, what about me?" And I'm like, "You need something to do?" I hand her a bag, and I'm like, "You're pulling weeds." And my dad and my stepmom look at me like, "You're crazy. What is wrong with you?" And these two kids lit up. One's sweeping, the other one's pulling weeds, and they're just like so happy. And I put it together. When I was a kid, that's why I loved hanging out with my uncle, because he mentored me, right? He gave me some purpose. He gave me something to do, and it made me feel good as a kid because nobody else thought I was useful. And so all my life, I've been lucky enough to find mentors to help give me purpose, to help give me direction, to help get me through the things. And so those are the people that I work with. These strategic relationships, they're just my mentors who have helped me out a ton, helped me get through some things, and I want to give back to them. And for sure, these relationships have equaled money, but it wasn't that I went into it for that. But that was really the genesis for what is now the Podcast Factory.
And I will say that like mentorships, they're great. And like, I am blessed to have the mentor that I have. You know, Mark has man, the guy, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but the guy actually, when I went through my breakup a couple of months ago, he gave me a call. He's like, "Is everything okay? Are you on top of your bills? Is everything good? Do you need a hand financially? Do you need a hand business wise? Like, what's up, man?" And I was able to tell him like, no, I'm good. But like, man, I have never had someone that I was not related to just jump in and make sure that I was okay in every aspect of my life like that, and say like, "Listen, dude, if you need anything, you give me a shout." And so like now that I'm doing better and everything is going well, like he and I now have a financial agreement. And I feel like once, like, mentorship usually starts as a pay it forward thing, like you said, but once your mentee starts getting on top of their game, they feel the need to give back too. And they're like, "Man, you've done so much for me." Just like you said with Podcast Factory, let me give you a platform, or, you know, let's do some shows. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes you get really good at, like, let's say copywriting or whatever it is they don't do, and you offer your services in exchange. Like, this is how you build strategic relationships, and they go a long way. And it's unreal. And it's one of those things where I am hungry for mentorship. I am always looking, you know, for someone who knows something I don't to help me out. But I know that typically that's either going to come at some sort of cost, you know, be it effort, or to have to do something for that person, perform a service for that person, or even financial. You're going to have to compensate. And that's one of the things that people have a hard time with when they approach me and they're like, "Hey, I want to know everything you know about podcasting." And I'm like, "Well, there's a dollar figure attached." And they pull back. They're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because if you want to be serious about what you're doing, I'd love to see you put your money where your mouth is, so that neither of us are wasting our time." Right. And it's one of those things, you know, with, I feel like that dollar value, one, keeps the tire kickers out. But two, lets you know just that person is, if they're serious enough to put their money where their mouth is, they know how much time it takes to make that money, or how much effort it takes to make that money, and they invest in you. Now, the second those dollars hit my pocket, that's when I say, "Oh man, this person is serious enough to invest in me. it's time to show them what that money is worth.
Right.
And once I see that money roll in, that's when I kick it to my absolute A game and give them more than they paid for. You know, we had my last client beat Tony Robbins in the new and noteworthy chart.
Nice.
Your guys get on top nonstop. Like, you know what it's like when money hits the bank account. You're like,
on top,
gotta do this. You even have it on the t-shirt, man. You know. And so, like, I feel like there's a lot of ways to make money with podcasting. I just happen to use the business of podcasting to do it. But I've seen people repurpose their content, like you said with the transcriptions. Those could be blog post guys.
Yeah.
You want to talk strategic relationships, transcribe some of your episodes and ask someone to do a guest blog post and just send them that.
Absolutely. So
next thing you know.
Do you have any more specific questions, or should I just share another technique?
You know what? I've got
and there might be some in the chat too. I see Max. What's up, brother? Good to see you, homie.
Yeah,
Max.
I've got some questions here, but I think another point would be good if you've got another point to share.
So you talked about affiliate marketing, and I hate affiliate marketing.
Yeah.
I used to hate affiliate marketing because I got involved with the wrong deals. And so if you're going to get involved with affiliate marketing, you got to get involved with people you like you did, people that you trust, people that you know, and people that are going to pay you. That's a key factor, people that are going to pay you. But one of the ways that I do affiliate marketing through podcasting is something that we call the Ben Settle Blitzkrieg. Now, Ben Settle, I don't know if he likes this name. In fact, I have a newsletter that I haven't read of his where he talks about it. He might have given it a whole different name, but Jonathan is going to call this Ben Settle Blitzkrieg. And what we do with the Ben Settle Blitzkrieg is we get the expert that we want to talk to, the expert whose product we're promoting, and we do an extended interview with them. And so our normal shows at Podcast Factory are only 20 minutes long. We keep them short and tight to keep you guys interested in wanting more. When we get a guest expert in and we're doing the Ben Settle Blitzkrieg, we take that expert and we interview them for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we take that interview, we slice it up into 4 equal parts. And what we do is we start on Thursday airing the parts. It's a weekend thing. Like, we really use it mostly for the Ben Settle show, but we start Thursday, one show airs Friday, Saturday, Sunday to the end, and we have a special promotion going, whether it's a discount code with a coupon or some extra bonuses that we're throwing in. That's the scarcity at the end of that. And what we do is we break up the interview into 4 parts. We put calls to action on both sides to go ahead and buy this product. Why? Because of the special. And we combine that with email. See, we build email lists. Like, I don't want to talk to anybody. If you don't have an email list, you do not need a podcast. Go home. Seriously. That's my thought on it.
It's true.
And so we combine the airing of the podcast, so everything they're getting in the feed, with the emails, and we do 2 emails a day every day. The last day, 4 emails, and that's why it's the Ben Settle Blitzkrieg, because they're getting it in their ears, they're getting it in their eyes. By the end of the week, they can smell it, they want it, and that's the way that we do affiliate marketing. But we usually only do that for 1,000 up products. So we're not doing little products of $50 or any of that stuff. There's not enough money in that. We're doing $1,000, $2,000 products so that there's enough for us to bring home some dough. Ben Settle Blitzkrieg.
Now I love that. I love that. Mostly, I love the name. So if Ben hates it, well, you've got at least one fan of the name. But 2, with us, it's a little different, right? We had to take a look at our audience. And we're talking to the 18 to 25-year-olds who are just starting their hustle out. Now, what we can both admit, there's a gap between where you are and where our audience is. And so we wanted to find people who were amazing at setting up launch stuff and starter stuff. So we said, who's a great web developer we know who charges a decent amount and puts out an amazing product? We found him. We found 2 or 3, actually. And we were like, hey, when people approach us and they want a website, can we refer them to you? And they were like, oh, absolutely. Do you guys pay a referral? And they're like, no. I'm like, would you be willing to? Oh yeah, definitely. Boom, marketing relationship right there. And so we've got 3 web developers on tap that we can recommend at different price points. And basically when someone says, hey guys, I'm just starting out my first business, I'm struggling, I heard your show, who do you know in the web design space? I can literally ask them, how much are you looking to blow? What do you want to spend? What do you want to invest? And when they give me that number, I know who to send them to. It's the same thing with producers and editors for podcasts. It's the same thing. I just go out and I think, what does my audience ask for? Can I offer that? And if I can't offer it, who do I know who can offer it? And then I form the relationship if I don't have one in my network yet.
Hello.
And that's been and that's been causing me that's been giving me a lot of decent pull. It's not huge dollars, because like I said, I think the most expensive program we've affiliated with is $6,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the least expensive is a web developer who does things a la carte. Like he literally will take each client on, and his margins are small, but it's still worth our while to send someone over there because I can't set up a website. So if I send someone over, they get in, and I just made money by dropping a name in someone else's hand.
That's right.
And that's kind of why I love affiliate marketing. But like you said, you have to try and test that person out. You have to enjoy your experience with them.
You gotta trust them.
Because if you don't, you could be sending your clients to someone who just doesn't represent
a nightmare,
you.
Right? It'll make you look terrible.
And let's face it, it takes a long time to build a good reputation, and only a couple short minutes to destroy
You're
it.
not kidding, man. I've always been afraid of that, and that's why I make sure. I mean, you and I have been talking for a long time, and we're together now. This is a long time. I mean, we probably talked 6-8 months ago, and so I like to make sure the people I'm representing, the people that are representing me, the people I'm getting together with, represent me well and have similar values.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I've been known to just kick somebody to the curb, all right? And people don't like it. People think it's nasty. But I go with my gut, and I'm like, if I don't think I can trust you, then I'm protecting my listeners. I'm protecting my list from you people, all right? And so I got to vet you first, and then we'll see if you're qualified to be in front of these people. That's my feeling of it. My listeners, my list, my customers, I am their shepherd, and I am here to protect them.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And that's how I feel about the PDC. Like you've probably seen the way I go off the deep end in the Podcast Discovery Center when someone breaks the rules or goes after someone that I think is a key contributor. Like I lose my mind on people. Like I've literally had videos where I'm like cussing people out for going after one of the guys who contributes and regularly and offers value, and someone flagged him as spam, and I lost it because I was like, no, this is not how we behave in this group. If you're going to spam on a regular basis, I don't want you going after other spammers. You're a hypocrite. Get out of here.
You know, and
I've got a
It's not this one.
And I always say that. I got other groups.
Yeah, I will recommend you to some shitty group.
Exactly, right? And so I'm protecting the PDC, and I definitely agree with that. Like I was actually nervous to ask you to join.
What? Oh, I'm back.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I was like, you know, I've been talking to John for like 8 months off and on. I've been watching what he does. He's in charge of some really stellar shows. We're just a little group of like 530. I wonder if it's worth his while.
No, of course.
And so I was like,
you got to take group.
I was like, John, man, do you want to do it? You want to do it? And you're like, yeah, not only do I want to do that, but I want to drop some kind of value bomb on them because I'm not very active on social media.
My words.
So not only did you jump in, but you jumped in bigger than anyone else. And and that made me really happy. And that actually inspired me to get on. This is the first of what's going to be a bunch of these. I made a list of people that I want to do blabs with for the PDC.
That is excellent. I love to hear that, man. I'm grateful for the invitation. I already told you this when we spoke in the group, but actually the fact that you and Anthony curate it and you guys are so strong to making sure it meets your guidelines is what makes the group special. And so that's why when I saw, I went in there and did some recon, made sure stuff was
of course.
And when I saw that, I'm like, oh yeah, this group is hot. I mean, I belong to a lot of groups. And so when I'm looking around, I don't even talk in most of groups, and I make time to at least batch some conversations and go piss some people off in your group every week. I'm just like, no, that's stupid. No, that's a bad idea. No, don't do that.
And people get really defensive and give you like responses this long, and you just write back, how many times you email your list?
3 words.
Or like just these little just like tiny little words, but it gets them going. And then they start analyzing their own shit. And they start like kind of answering their own questions. And it's awesome, man. And I love it. That's why I'm glad you're there. And that's why I wanted to set up these lists and start building almost pillar of the community type people. Cool. People who know their stuff and are willing to. It's one thing to have 500 people or 1,000 people in a group sharing their insights. It's another thing to have 12 or 15 of the right people giving their insights. And that's why I figured you were the best guy to get in to talk money. So how long is that list of nuggets you got there?
I got a couple more. So do you have specific questions from the group, or I could just keep going here? But I would definitely like to answer specific questions if I can.
The main thing people have been asking, and I feel like it's almost the wrong tree to bark up with you, but people have been asking me, how do I approach sponsors? And how do I get people into my Patreon? And how do I direct, traffic or engagement or whatever? But, you're one of those guys who, like I said, you're a business guy. You feel that business and customers are the point of a podcast. So I don't know if you've got tips and tricks about sponsorship, feel free. That's been the main concern on people's minds. But I feel like it's almost like the skateboarding world where you've got 200,000 kids sending in sponsor me tapes to Birdhouse Skateboards or, whatever company it is. And they've got you think they filter through all 200,000? No, not at all. And so I feel like with sponsors, you got to have a relationship, just like with affiliates, just like with anyone else. But what's your take on it?
I can see why you would want to have sponsors, and I share it in one of my 11 secrets to make money podcasting is sponsorships. But as you said, it's better with relationships, and the money is never going to be as good as selling your own products. On top of that, when you sell your own products, not only have you made money, which is delicious, but you also have a new customer on your list who you can sell to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to urge you not to get sponsors. But if you want to, I'm going to give you a resource. And so, look, this is not an affiliate link. This is for the purpose of making it simple, because I am not the guy to talk to about sponsors. I'm going to point you to the guy to talk to about sponsors. It's thepodcastfactory.com/Jason. And Jason Zook, he was part of my podcast virtual summit. He's got a long list of products and accomplishments. And I read his course on sponsorships. And then I went out and I got my first few sponsors. The money just wasn't great. It was like $1,500 or $2,000. No, it was $1,250, actually. I picked up 2 sponsors, $1,250 for 8 shows. The money just wasn't interesting to me. It wasn't that good. But I would recommend Jason's product because he's the one that gave me the idea of don't tell sponsors how many downloads you want. Make sure your sponsors line up with your list and that you can give them an ROI. Choose sponsors by how your relationship is with them. That's the kind of stuff I picked up from Jason that allowed me to go and not even talk about downloads and just say, hey, $1,250, and I knew the price was too low because those people signed up so quickly. I'm like, this is boring. But I totally get it. If you guys want to do that, just not my bag.
And I'll say that $1,250 for some people in the PDC, that's attractive money. I will say that much. Just starting out, it's a good way to go, especially if you don't have products or services. But I got to second what Jonathan's saying. I know that one guy right here in the room, Cole, he's got books. He's got books already written, already published. You could be selling those through your podcast if you're not already, brother. And that's the kind of thing that I personally would lean more toward is how can I get my audience interested in buying my product or service?
That's where the money is.
That's the big one for me. Yeah, that's where the real money is.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, we got a question down at the bottom.
Rob.
What's up, Rob? Yeah, would there be a recommended minimum list you'd want to have before you would launch a podcast project with someone? A minimum recommended list.
Great, Rob. And Rob is one of my Podcast Mogul subscribers. Thanks for the support, brother. Kidding. Rob, in next month's issue. All right, so you already got this month's issue. In next month's issue, it's Podcast Mogul number 3. In next month's issue, I share case studies on different people where I'm doing Mythbusters on how we launch shows get them to the top of iTunes. And one of those Mythbuster things is where I talk about Michelle Spiver from Epic Story Lifestyle. Does not have much of an email list, but she followed my formula to the letter. So we got her up to number 3 in new and noteworthy, and her list was less than 100 people. So more important to me about list size is how often are you in touch with them? Just like Scott's saying, he thinks his group is small at 500 people. I think that's phenomenal. But he's in touch with those people every day, videos every day. They all know who Scott is. And so no matter whether your list is big or small, it's how well do they know you before I would even think about anything else. And that's why I talk about emailing every day. I'm a Ben Settle disciple. Email every day. Make sure they know who you are.
And I'll be honest, guys, when I do my videos every single day, I'm not giving away the golden goose either. Oh, your biggest fan is in the room, man. I gotta kick back. Props. But let's give a bunch of props to Jonathan. He's got his biggest fan here. But yeah, no, when I give my videos to my group every day, it's not hard teaching. I'm not giving away the golden goose at all. I'm giving my videos and I'm telling people, hey guys, here's one podcast I would recommend from this list of 500 podcasts we've got going on right now. This is why I think you should go check them out. Here's a little tip or strategy I use for something. It could be SEO or it could be content. I bitch a lot about content being king and making sure you've got amazing content, because if you don't enjoy doing your show and it's not valuable to you, we hear that. We hear that so much. And it's one of those things where, like in Death, Glory, Disappointment, Dan rips. He rips because he believes in what he's saying. And then he incites and inspires questions out of you because you're like, hey, whoa, I don't know if I agree with that. Could you elaborate? And then you'll make them go into an even deeper explanation. And so if you're not talking what you know and you're not talking what you love, you're going to lose interest in it, not only in your own show, but you're not going to get listeners. And let's face it, money is great, but you're doing a podcast to be heard.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I was actually surprised that more people were asking about money than engagement or listeners. But when I get in and I do my videos, they're always, and remember when I told you that the second I said I didn't want to sell anything to these people, they started lining up to buy, and you said, what's my secret? That's it. I get in, I told them, I'm not going to sell my products to any of you. I'm not here to direct sell any of you. But then I started posting all of these videos saying like, hey guys, this is what I think about podcasting. This is what I think you could be doing better. And automatically people were like, hey, do you have a minute I can pick your brain? And that opened up the chance to say, yeah, but I charge for those
Bring
minutes.
your dollars.
Exactly. Bring your money. And don't get me wrong. I'm not a greedy human being. There's a lot of people. I usually give people the first talk for free. We chit chat. They bring their questions. I bring my A game. But then after that, I charge per consult. And after that, if you want to launch a show, I charge for the entire program. And it's just, but when I get in there, I give people just enough that if they put it into action, it will get them results. But if they want to know more, they've got to get in touch with me on the phone.
Bring your dinero, pal.
Exactly. And even if they don't bring the dinero for the first one, the phone is where I close people.
Yeah.
Truly. I've never closed someone on Facebook. I like doing my closing one-on-one.
Oh, no. Insider secret to making money podcasting. I do the same thing. Look on my website for my production services. You will not find them. You can apply if the application's open, and we're going to talk on the phone, and I'm going to get to the bottom of your business. You guys are going to have to get on the phone if you want to make real money. Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. You don't make money if you ain't on the phone. I tell every single person who calls and asks me, how do I make money? I said, you make money in direct proportion to how much you were on the phone. Man.
That's a tip.
It's the same thing as the stock market. You don't see those stockbrokers with their phones in their pockets. No, they're chasing the money. It's the same thing with us. It's like I've been guilty of saying it in the PDC a few times. I'm a salesman first and a podcaster second.
I don't even call myself a podcaster. Entrepreneur, baby. Solving problems.
Yeah. And so being in a group where I'm not allowed to sell to people, I'm like chewing on my nails all day long because I'm like, oh, I know I have a solution to that problem. But then I'll quickly jump in and say, hey, you got 30 minutes? I'll be happy to sit down on a call with you. And usually by the end of that call, I've either closed them or chased them away.
Unbelievable. The phone. Welcome to 1910. So any other questions from the group that I can answer? Oh, here's one coming in.
I have an online training program. How can I use a podcast to promote my training program without giving away too much free training? I guess what's your training program about? What are you training? Front office dental staff. Okay, so my biggest thing would be, if you're going to create a show, you need to leverage yourself as an expert. So you would have to find a way to, for instance, there's really no good programs out there and I'm a dentist. Okay, so I don't know much about the dental industry. I will admit that for sure. But if you don't mind, Jonathan, I'm just going to kind of give my own approach and then you can throw in whatever you like.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. For me, I decide, whenever I have someone in who's, let's say, a fitness expert. My last client was a fitness expert. And he got in guys like Alex Charfin and a bunch of either entrepreneurs or crazy fitness guys, right, in. Well, it was great. He became known as a great interviewer very quickly. But I decided to get people, I told him, I was like, listen, you got to leverage yourself as an expert somehow, as a game changer, as the guy people go to, as a celebrity even. You've got to get yourself known as someone who knows their stuff. So if you've got a program that you're looking to push, people need to know that you know your stuff. So what I would do is I would get people who you're looking to sell your program to write questions or figure out what their issues are, and just come out with little bite-sized episodes where you quickly address that little piece. Don't give away too much, but let them know you know your stuff. And then when they ask you, hey, can I pick your brain about that? That opens the door for the next part of that conversation. I don't know. Agree, disagree.
And what Max said too. What Max said, he said email more. And the thing that we've learned from Ben Settle is infotainment. So whatever you're doing is only just a small little bit of information wrapped in entertainment without giving the secret away. That's the one thing I would add there.
Yeah, exactly. And once people hear you answering those questions and hear you talking about your trade, you create customers just by your own presence and your own proximity to the problem. People often get in touch with me about startup businesses now, and I never once claimed to be a startup business expert. But it's because I started 2 brands of my own in the last 3 years. I started Edge Motivation, and then I started Scott Podcast Coach, and people are like, how'd you do that?
Work. Well, I did work.
I just taught. Yeah, I did work. And so now when people ask, I can talk about how I did it. But, would you recommend using blab clips to convert to podcasts? You could. They give you the audio.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, they email it to you. They'll email you the audio.
That's cool. So he also asked, who was that? That was that question went away. Oh, you just answered.
Front desk U1.
Would you recommend using blab clips to convert to podcasts? What are your thoughts about podcasts for mortgage loans? Same thing, infotainment, however you can figure out infotainment. That, and then leveraging relationships, maybe getting with your title agent, your insurance agent, all these people, and doing interviews and stuff like that. Not so much for the fact that your listeners are going to be entertained by these people, which is part of it, but also for the strategic relationships we talked about probably at the 30-minute mark during today's session.
Nice. I love it when the listeners start answering questions down below too.
Yeah.
That's the coolest part about Blab. So yeah, do you have another nugget you'd like to share for the members of the PDC?
Let's see. Let's really quickly see what Rob is asking here. What type of podcast would you listen to as a dentist? Oh, he's already answering your question. So Rob, you take care of that. You're a budding podcast mogul, so you do your thing.
Yeah, man, you get her done.
So let's see. What else do I have here that is relevant? Oh, here's another one that I've used that has been pretty interesting, and it's off the market stuff. So this is another reason why you need to have a business before you get into a podcast. But if you have a business and it's been around for a while, there's likely some older stuff that maybe you've taken off the market that you're not really using anymore. And one of the ways I like to bring that back is to offer a real low price on it, a real big discount, low price. Say, hey, I just brought this product back from the vault. It's a little dated, but this, and this would still be useful for you. That's why I'm offering it at this price to my listeners only. And bam, you just resurrected an old problem an old product to solve problems today, which solving problems earns you money. Hello, welcome to Entrepreneur Living.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will say one thing, man. One of the things people do get in touch with me a lot, and I don't know if it's just because it's such a diverse group, but people in the PDC seem to be pounding Patreon pretty hard. And for those of you who don't know what it is, Patreon's like a Kickstarter or a crowdfunder. People can donate per episode or per month. We have one for the education podcast, but we haven't put a lot of time and effort into it because I find it funny when entrepreneurs use Kickstarters, but I figured since people were actually asking questions about it, I definitely wanted to know something about it. Patreon. Yeah. And the thing is, it's kind of a cool way to get listeners to buy in. Yeah, to get listeners to buy into your show and kind of have a listener-funded show, it works. We kind of set ours up two ways. We used links and shout-outs and promotion across all of our social media for people who had businesses, brands, shows of their own. If you donate $5, we'll shout you out on Twitter, Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we've done that whole thing. But we've also put together, like, if you donate X amount, we'll send you T-shirts and merch and stickers and all that to get listeners kind of intrigued too. If you're going to do it, you've got to approach it from a place that's not like, hey, we want your money, we're begging. It's got to be value.
Sir, can you spare a quarter?
You can't open your fridge and be like, it's empty, please donate. Yeah. No, you've got to really bring the value to set yourself apart from every other guy or girl using Patreon out there. You got to be able to bring it, give it, use combination of shout outs, physical goods, books and takeaways, things people can take home and show off. And it's a good place to snake some of your merchandise in there for free publicity, you know. Donate to the Patreon. We'll send you a Podcast Factory t-shirt, an Edge Motivation flag, a bunch of stickers, and we want to see pictures.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But yeah, I would
going to use Patreon.
The thing about it is, and to your point, you have to do all that work. You may as well be selling something else because basically you're selling the Patreon. Exactly. So just go learn how to sell. Exactly. Just go learn how to sell. You do yourself a favor. All right. So we're getting.
Yeah. And then get your stuff transcribed and sell transcription library instead.
Yeah. We are getting close to the end. Any other questions before we're wrapping this thing up? I got another appointment. I got to get on the phone, yo.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm pretty good. We hit sponsors, affiliates, Patreon, content repurposing, using the podcast to support business. Those were all my notes.
Boom. All right. So I think we got everything. Anybody else have another question as we're wrapping up here? Look at them. They're having a whole conversation. We're not even included anymore. Oh, we need you guys. All right, cool. Well, Scott, hopefully this was helpful. I will post up the replay. I'll put it up.
Oh, that'd be beautiful.
I know it's going to be on here, and I'm probably going to put it on my YouTube channel, so I'll share it after it processes. The last time I had trouble stopping this thing, so I'm going to get ready now to stop it. But, dude, thank you so much for allowing me to get with the PDC and be a part of this. You're awesome.
Thank you for contributing, man. We appreciate having Titans like you around. It helps us hone our skills and get our A game to an even higher level. So.
All right, brother. And thank you guys who tuned in and hung out with us today and who are helping each other. That's what I like to see. So good stuff. Boom, I'm getting props. Now, I don't know how to end this, so we could be here all night.
Well, I can.
So I am going to close this out and